All right, in this video, we'll begin looking at the language of anatomy. When we talk about the subject, there are certain words and terms that we will use regularly, and it's important for you to have a grasp on them before we go forward. So let me encourage you to spend some time with these words, understand them. We will use them a lot as the year goes on. So first, let's talk about the idea of anatomical position. Anatomical position is the position when the body is standing, like you see here. The palms are face forward as opposed to like towards your legs or whatever, and the thumbs are pointed away from the body, just like you see here. And when we talk about right and left concerning anatomical position, we are talking about the subject as opposed to our own right and left. And so if we were talking about this man's left hand, we would be talking about this one here. So we are in relationship to him. And so make sure you understand that. And then we're going to have some directional terms that we'll mention in a moment that'll help us to talk about direction. We don't say like top, bottom, or any of that. And so next are some regional terms. These are also a large set of terms that will help us when we're talking about particular regions of the body. There are two fundamental divisions of the body. The axial region, this has to do with the head and the neck and the trunk. And then there is the appendicular region, which has to do with the upper and the lower limbs. And then you can see some other divisions, of course, and they are, like I said, they are many. And so each of these terms you will need to familiarize yourself with to one level or another. So just to orient you here, we're talking about the cephalic region. We are talking about the head. And then the head then is divided into all of these separate things. And so just so you understand, when you're looking at this, this is vast and many. Make sure that you spend some time here to understand this. And as we work through the class, a lot of these same sounding words, you will notice a lot of these prefixes and suffixes, all this Latin will start to stick to you, and it will get a lot easier as we go through the class. And so this is something that you're going to need to know backwards and forwards. All right, and so now we're going to be looking at body planes. And what we mean by body plane is if you were to take a sheet or something and divide the body, that divides the body into certain planes. These planes are flat surfaces, and they are usually at right angles to one another. Think of dividing the body into sections, then having two halves. Each half has a name. There's the sagittal plane. This is a vertical line that divides right and left. So if you were to draw a line down the front of you, right down the middle, you're creating a sagittal plane, and then there's a left and a right side. There's a frontal plane, which is what you see here, and that creates a anterior, which is the front, and a posterior, which is the back. Sometimes we will use the words ventral and dorsal as well. Ventral has to do with the front, or underneath is probably a better way of thinking about that. And then dorsal has to do with the back. Think of like a shark's dorsal fin. Where is it located? It's on its back. Get the idea. And then there's transverse planes. This is a horizontal plane that divides the top from the bottom. And so we don't use the word tops and bottoms. We use superior for top and inferior for bottom. Sometimes you will see these called cranial for top, towards the head, think of the cranium, and caudal towards the tail. And so these are terms that are often used with animals specifically, but you can see them in anatomical books as well. Caudal has to do with tail. Think of like a caudal fin of a fish, for instance. And so here's some more views of those planes. Again, very important. We will use these terms like posterior, anterior a lot. And there are some directional terms here as well. So like medial means toward the middle. Lateral means toward the outside or away from the middle. And so you might use a term like the eyes are lateral to the nose. so forth. Intermediate has to do with between the middle and outside. And so I don't believe I have an intermediate here. I don't. And so intermediate has to do with between those two. Proximal and distal. Proximal has to do with closer to the origin of a body part. So, like the arm is proximal to the shoulder, the upper arm is, whereas the lower arm is distal to the shoulder. It is further away from that origin, that shoulder point. Superficial, the term superficial has to do with surface. I think we all understand this term from its other uses. Someone is a superficial person, that means that they are just surface level. You don't get a whole lot from them. Whereas if someone's deep, this is away from the surface. And so we have superficial structures and we have deep structures.